The knock startled me just as I dropped my duffel bag onto the floor, the weight of months at sea pressing down on me like an anchor. My boots scraped against the hardwood as I froze, heart thudding. That wasn't Sophia's knock, too sharp, too insistent. When I opened the door, I found Nathan standing there, his posture rigid, his face twisted with an unsettling mix of anger and something that looked dangerously close to pity. Nathan, my neighbor, the kind of guy who always waved when I passed by, always offered a smile or a polite word. But tonight, his eyes burned with a raw intensity I'd never seen before. "I can't keep this to myself anymore, Ethan," he said, his voice low and clipped. His gaze darted down the street as if checking for prying eyes, his jaw tightening like he was bracing for something. "You've been gone a long time. Too long. You deserve to know what's been happening." A knot formed in my stomach, twisting tighter with every word. "What are you talking about?" I asked, gripping the doorframe so hard my knuckles turned white. Nathan sighed heavily, his frustration spilling out in the way he ran a hand through his hair. He muttered something I couldn't catch, then squared his shoulders and met my eyes with a look that made my blood run cold. "It's Sophia," he said, "your wife. While you've been gone, she's been throwing wild parties almost every weekend. Strangers showing up at all hours, blasting music, littering the sidewalk with broken bottles." He hesitated, his voice dropping to an almost apologetic tone. "But it's not just the parties, Ethan. She's been bringing men over. Different men. I've seen them with my own eyes. Sometimes more than one in a single night." I stared at him, waiting for some hint that he was exaggerating, or that this was all some kind of sick joke. But Nathan wasn't joking. His hands clenched into fists at his sides, trembling with the weight of whatever else he was holding back. "The worst part," he continued, his voice cracking slightly, "is the kids. Your kids, Ethan. They've been in the middle of it all. I've seen them wandering around during those parties, barefoot, scared, like they don't know where to go or what to do." My mouth went dry, my throat tightening as if the air had turned to sand. "Nathan, if this is some kind of sick joke," I started, but he cut me off, his voice sharp and unwavering. "It's not," he said, shoving his phone into my hands. "Here, see for yourself." I hesitated, dread pooling in my stomach, but my fingers moved on their own, tilting the screen toward me. I didn't want to look. Part of me hoped he was lying or mistaken, but the moment my eyes met the grainy video, any denial I clung to crumbled. It was my living room. No mistaking it. The faded blue couch, the picture frames on the wall, the toy box shoved into the corner. And there she was, Sophia, lounging on the couch like she didn't have a care in the world. A man sat next to her, his arms slung casually over her shoulders. Her head was thrown back in laughter, her smile carefree and unfamiliar, like a stranger had stolen her face. Around them, the room was packed with people, drinking, dancing, shouting. The floor was a mess of crushed beer cans, cigarette butts, and torn-up wrappers. My chest tightened when I spotted it. My daughter's pink unicorn toy, lying abandoned beneath the coffee table, half buried in the trash. I couldn't hear the noise in the video, but I didn't need to. The chaos on the screen was suffocating, radiating a toxic energy that crawled under my skin and left me trembling. Nathan's voice broke through my daze, low and rough, brimming with restrained anger. "That's not even the worst of it," he said. "She's been letting the kids fend for themselves while she plays hostess. It's out of control, Ethan. One night, I found your son sitting on my porch, tears streaming down his face. He was shaking, couldn't even get the words out at first. When he finally did, he said he didn't want to go back inside, that he was scared." His hands curled into fists at his sides, his knuckles whitening with the force. "I'm sorry to dump this on you the minute you're home, but I couldn't just sit by and watch anymore. You're a good man, Ethan. You don't deserve this. And those kids," he shook his head, his voice breaking, "they sure as hell don't either." For a second, it felt like the world tilted. My home, my sanctuary, had turned into something unrecognizable. I looked at Nathan, his face marked with frustration and guilt, and I knew he wasn't lying. Before I could say anything, Nathan leaned in closer, his voice lowering. "You need to handle this for yourself, for your kids. But whatever you do, don't let her know I told you." Then he turned and walked away, leaving me standing there, the phone still in my hand. My heartbeat pounded in my ears, a flood of questions rushing through my mind. Who were those men? How long had this been going on? And why the hell hadn't anyone else said anything? I stepped back inside, the door closing with a dull thud. The house felt colder, quieter than it should have. I stood there, staring at the walls, the furniture, the photos of Sophia and the kids smiling back at me from the mantel. It all felt like a lie, didn't it? Every bit of it. I had come home, ready to be a husband, a father, a man proud of his family. Now, all I had was Nathan's words and that gut-wrenching video, both cutting into me like a blade. Upstairs, Sophia's voice rang out, as cheerful and sweet as ever, calling for me. I slipped the phone into my pocket, forcing myself to respond. The game had just begun, and she had no idea the rules were about to change. Nathan's words echoed in my mind as I stood in the hallway, Sophia's cheerful voice still echoing down the stairs. For a moment, I considered storming up there, demanding answers, flipping the house upside down. But something stopped me, a voice telling me to wait, to think. If she was capable of all this under my nose, she'd have lies ready. I needed to see it for myself. I grabbed my jacket and stepped outside, pretending to get some fresh air. The night was thick with a humid silence, almost suffocating. My boots crunched on the gravel driveway as I walked around the side of the house, heart pounding like a war drum. It was strange. I'd lived here for years, but tonight, it felt alien, like stepping into enemy territory. The first thing I noticed was the faint smell of stale beer, lingering in the air like a bad memory, growing stronger as I neared the back patio. I crouched down by the sliding glass door and peered inside. At first glance, the place looked clean, almost too clean, like she'd gone out of her way to hide something. But in the dim light of the kitchen, there it was, a smashed beer bottle in the corner, shards glinting like tiny accusations. I stepped closer, my shadow stretching long and dark across the deck. The faint glow from the living room window illuminated just enough to reveal details I hadn't noticed at first. Through the glass, I caught subtle but damning signs. Faint scuff marks on the hardwood floor, the kind that come from too many careless footsteps shuffling through in a hurry. The trash bin near the corner caught my eye, overflowing with mismatched Solo cups barely concealed beneath a layer of crumpled paper towels. It was an attempt to hide the mess, but not a very good one. Then there was the couch. A throw blanket draped haphazardly across the cushions, as if someone had tried to cover up something. A stain, maybe, or worse, without much care. My stomach churned at the thought. I stepped back from the window, swallowing hard as my eyes adjusted to the darkness of the yard. The dim light from the house spilled faintly onto the grass, enough to highlight something near the tree line. At first, I thought it was just debris, but as I moved closer, the details became clearer. Cigarette butts, dozens of them, scattered across the lawn like breadcrumbs. Sophia didn't smoke. Neither did I. I scanned the area again, my heart thudding in my chest. A glint of glass caught my eye in the bushes. Curious and dreading what I might find, I crouched down and pulled it free. A whiskey bottle, half full, its label gleaming faintly in the moonlight. The brand was high-end, something I never would have bought and Sophia couldn't afford. The realization hit me hard. This wasn't ours. I turned the bottle in my hands, the weight of it grounding me in a moment that felt utterly surreal. These weren't just the remnants of a careless party. They were signs of intrusion, markers left behind by someone who had treated my home as if it were theirs. I straightened up, my eyes scanning the yard with growing unease. This wasn't just a mess Sophia had allowed. It was evidence of something deeper, someone else laying claim to a space that wasn't theirs to take, someone who didn't belong here. The urge to storm back inside was almost too much to handle, but I clenched my fists and forced myself to breathe. I couldn't let her know I was onto her. Not yet. This wasn't just about catching her. It was about understanding the full extent of what she'd done. I couldn't confront her without all the pieces of the puzzle. Not if I wanted the truth. I slipped the whiskey bottle into my jacket pocket and made my way back to the front door, my mind racing with questions. Why had Nathan waited so long to tell me? Who were these people she'd let into our home? And most importantly, what else had she been hiding from me? As I stepped inside, the scent of Sophia's perfume hit me, too sweet, suffocating. She was standing in the kitchen, phone in hand, smiling like everything was fine. "Hey, where'd you go?" she asked, her voice light and carefree. "Just needed some fresh air," I said, forcing my tone to stay calm. My eyes scanned the room, landing on the spot where Nathan's video had shown a stranger just nights ago. I clenched my jaw, offering a smile in return. "Did you miss me?" she teased, stepping closer, completely unaware that the game had already begun. "Not yet, Sophia," I thought to myself. Not yet. I barely slept after that night. The scuff marks, the whiskey bottle, Nathan's words. They all swirled in my mind, forming a picture I wasn't ready to see. But I knew one thing for certain. I needed to know everything. Confronting Sophia too soon would give her the upper hand. I needed undeniable proof, something she couldn't explain away. The next day, I called Butch, my old Marine buddy who ran a security company. He owed me a favor, and I wasn't shy about cashing it in. I need cameras, I told him, my voice steady but cold. Hidden ones. Everywhere. Discreet. Butch didn't ask questions. By nightfall, the cameras were installed, tiny, undetectable lenses tucked into corners, vents, and fixtures. Living room, kitchen, hallway, bedroom. There wasn't a single blind spot. I watched the setup silently, jaw clenched, every fiber of my being screaming that this was the right move. Sophia was out with the kids when it happened. She never suspected a thing. For weeks, I waited, checking the footage every chance I had while aboard the ship. At first, there was nothing. Sophia went about her day. The kids played. For a moment, I began to doubt myself. Maybe Nathan was exaggerating. Maybe the party signs were old. Maybe I was just looking for something that wasn't there. Then, I saw him. It was late, barely a sliver of moonlight illuminating the house. Sophia had put the kids to bed and was lounging on the couch, scrolling through her phone. At first, it seemed normal, almost boring. But then, headlights flashed through the living room window. She jumped up, her face lighting up in a way I hadn't seen in years. My chest tightened as she opened the door. "Owen," she said, the air feeling like it was punched out of my lungs. Owen wasn't just anyone. He was a guy I knew, a guy I trusted. We weren't close friends, but he was familiar enough to make this whole thing 10 times worse. He was holding a bottle of champagne, grinning like he owned the place. Sophia welcomed him with open arms, her smile wide, eyes sparkling. Then she hugged him and planted a kiss on his lips. "Long day?" he joked, stepping inside. "You have no idea," she replied, her tone dripping with something I didn't recognize anymore. She shut the door behind him, her hand brushing his back as she did. I watched as they moved into the living room, champagne glasses appearing out of nowhere. Sophia poured, her movements deliberate, almost flirtatious. She sat close to him on the couch, too close. They laughed together, their heads tilting toward each other in that sickeningly intimate way. My fists clenched as I watched her lean in, her hand casually resting on his knee, pushing her skirt up. It wasn't outright betrayal yet, but it was enough to make my blood boil. The worst part wasn't even how close they were. It was her face. That easy, glowing smile she used to reserve for me. The light in her eyes that used to greet me when I came home from deployment. It was all there, but it wasn't mine anymore. I fast-forwarded the footage, needing to know how far this went. Their laughter grew softer, their movements slower. She touched his arm, her fingers lingering, and he leaned in closer, kissed her again, and started removing her clothes. My stomach churned. Anger, disbelief, and a sickening sense of inevitability flooded through me. Finally, I shut the app, my hand trembling as I gripped the phone. The walls of my bunk felt like they were closing in. The familiar hum of the ship's engines no longer provided any comfort. This wasn't just a mistake or misunderstanding. No, this was real. Sophia had brought another man, Owen of all people, into my home, into our home. I stared at the ceiling, my heart pounding, as the pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place. How long had this been going on? How many times had Owen, or others, walked through my door like they belonged here? And what kind of person had Sophia become, smiling at him like that while our kids slept upstairs? The rage inside me wasn't just for her. It was for me too. For being blind. For trusting her. For giving my life to someone who had already decided I wasn't enough. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. This wasn't the time to lose control. This was the time to prepare. Owen might have been the first piece, but I knew there was more, and I was going to uncover every single bit of it. The footage started innocently enough, just like the other nights I'd been watching. Sophia was in the kitchen, pouring herself a glass of wine, while Owen lounged on the couch like he owned the place. His legs were propped up on my coffee table, the same table where my kids and I used to sit and play board games. My chest tightened as I watched him glance toward the stairs. "Are they asleep?" he asked casually, taking a sip from his glass. "Yeah," Sophia replied, her tone too relaxed, too familiar. She joined him on the couch, her movements slow and deliberate. She tucked her legs under her, leaning closer. "We've got the whole night," she said, her voice almost sultry. I fast-forwarded, knowing what was coming, but still not ready to watch it unfold in real time. They stayed up late, talking, laughing, their bodies inching closer until there was no space left between them. When the lights went out, my vision blurred with rage, but I forced myself to keep watching. This wasn't just anger, it was strategy. Every second was evidence. Every touch, every laugh, every betrayal. It was all building towards something. What happened the next morning gutted me. The camera in the hallway caught Owen coming down the stairs, barefoot and shirtless, as casual as if he lived there. My son's bedroom door creaked open, and my 2 kids came bounding out, their sleepy faces lighting up when they saw him. "Daddy!" my son yelled, running straight for him. Owen crouched down, catching him in his arms with an exaggerated laugh. "Hey, buddy," he said, ruffling his hair like he'd done it 100 times before. My daughter followed, grabbing onto his leg and giggling. "Daddy, look at my doll," she said. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. My kids, the same kids who'd made me little drawings saying how much they missed me, calling this man daddy. Sophia appeared behind him, her hair messy from the night before, holding a cup of coffee. She watched the scene unfold with a smirk, as if it was the most natural thing in the world. "Breakfast is almost ready," she said. Leaning against the wall like this was her perfect little family. I wanted to throw my phone across the room. I wanted to scream, to hit something, to do anything but keep watching. But I didn't. I couldn't. Instead, I saved the footage, labeling it with cold, clinical precision. This wasn't just betrayal. It was a rush. Sophia hadn't just cheated on me. She'd let someone else step into my life, into my role as a father. She'd allowed my children to believe, even for a second, that this stranger was their dad. I stared at the screen, my reflection staring back at me in the darkened glass. The rage boiling inside me was almost too much to contain, but I forced it down. Emotions could come later. Right now, I needed to stay clear-headed. I had proof now, proof that went beyond parties and whispers. This was the kind of betrayal you couldn't walk back from, the kind that demanded justice. Closing the app, I leaned back against the cold steel wall of my bunk. My hands were trembling, but my mind was sharp, focused. Sophia didn't know it yet, but she'd made a mistake. A mistake she wasn't going to recover from. When I walked through the front door, Sophia greeted me with a bright, practiced smile, like nothing had happened. She threw her arms around me, the smell of her perfume clinging too sweetly to the air, masking the rot beneath the surface. My stomach twisted, but I hugged her back, my hands steady despite the storm raging inside me. "I missed you so much," she said, her voice light and warm. "Missed you too," I replied, forcing a smile as I stepped back. My eyes scanned the house, searching for the subtle signs I now knew how to spot. Everything seemed perfect on the surface, but I knew better. The kids came running in, their laughter filling the room. My son threw his arms around my leg, and my daughter proudly showed off a new drawing she'd made. For a moment, I almost let my guard down. Their innocence, their love, it was everything I'd been holding onto while I was away. But then, in the back of my mind, I heard it again, "Daddy," and I remembered who else they'd said it to. I knelt down, ruffling their hair. "Missed you two the most," I said, my smile not quite reaching my eyes. The rest of the evening passed in a haze of forced normalcy. Sophia chatted about the kids, the neighbors, little things that used to matter. I nodded, replied, when necessary, all the while piecing together my next move. She had no idea what I'd seen, and I wasn't about to tip her off. That night, as she slept beside me, I stared at the ceiling, every muscle in my body tense. The image of Owen holding my kids, their joyful cries of "Daddy," played over and over in my head like a cruel loop. I needed answers, not just about her betrayal, but about one question I couldn't ignore. Were they even mine? The thought clawed at me, relentless and cruel. It wasn't just my pride at stake. It was my identity as their father, the very core of who I was. If Owen was their real father, then Sophia had been lying to me for far longer than I could have imagined. The next morning, while Sophia was busy with breakfast and the kids, I made my move. I slipped out, telling her I needed to run an errand. My first stop was a local lab that specialized in discrete DNA testing. The woman behind the counter barely glanced at me as I handed over the samples, my blood sample and a toothbrush from each of the kids. "How soon can I get the results?" I asked, my voice calm but firm. 3 to 5 business days, she replied, handing me a receipt. I nodded, hiding any emotion, and left without another word. As I drove home, my mind raced with possibilities. What if the test confirmed my fears? What if they didn't? Either way, the truth was something I needed, no matter how much it might destroy me. When I returned, Sophia was in the living room, her phone in hand, smiling at something on the screen. I felt the rage bubble up but forced it down, keeping my face neutral. "Everything okay?" she asked, her voice casual as ever. "Yeah," I said, keeping my tone light. "Just had to grab a few things for the ship." She nodded, completely oblivious to the cracks forming in the foundation of her carefully built lie. For the next few days, I played the part of the doting husband. Every smile, every gesture, calculated to keep her in the dark. But inside, the tension was building. I checked my phone obsessively, waiting for the call from the lab. I knew that when it came, everything would change. I wasn't just fighting for the truth anymore. I was fighting for my kids, for the life I thought I had, and for the justice she didn't think I was capable of delivering. I wasn't going to stop until I had every piece of the puzzle in my hands. The call came in the late afternoon. I was alone in the garage, pretending to sort through old tools, but my hands were shaking when I answered. The voice on the other end was calm, clinical, oblivious to the hurricane it was about to unleash. "Mr. Bennett," the lab technician began, "the results are in. Neither of the children share your DNA." The words hit me like a freight train. For a moment, I couldn't speak, couldn't move. The phone felt heavy in my hand, the weight of the truth pressing down on me. My kids, my world, weren't mine. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to keep my voice steady. "Thank you," I said flatly, ending the call. I didn't need any details. The result was all I needed. I sat in silence for a long time, the distant sound of Sophia's laughter filtering through the walls as she played with the kids. My kids? No, her kids. The ones she'd let me believe were mine for years. The ones I'd held, comforted, and sacrificed for. All while she spun this web of lies. By the time dinner arrived, I had buried the storm raging inside me. Sophia had made spaghetti, and the smell of garlic and marinara filled the kitchen. The kids chatted happily about their day, completely unaware of the heavy truth hanging in the air. Sophia, with her usual grace, served the plates as though nothing was amiss, her smile so natural it sickened me. I sat across from her, my eyes locked on hers, watching her laugh at something our son had said. She glanced at me, her smile faltering slightly. "Everything okay, Ethan?" she asked, her tone casual, though there was a trace of unease in it. I leaned back in my chair, not breaking my gaze. "Yeah," I replied, my voice calm but cold. "Tomorrow, I want to talk to you. But for now," I gestured at the food. "Let's enjoy this evening." Her smile vanished entirely, her expression hardening. "What's that supposed to mean?" she asked, her voice sharper than she intended. "Exactly what I said," I replied evenly, not letting her see a hint of my anger. "Tomorrow, we talk. Tonight, we eat." Her hand froze midair, the fork just above her plate. Her eyes darted between mine, searching for answers. But I gave her nothing. No hint, no emotion, just silence. Her breath hitched slightly, and for the first time, I saw a crack in her perfect mask, fear. I interrupted her before she could say anything, my tone final. "Not tonight." She sat back, crossing her arms, her face hardening. "Fine," she snapped, her voice laced with irritation, but I caught the flash of panic in her eyes. She was already starting to unravel, piecing together what I knew and how I knew it. The rest of the dinner was strained. The kids' lively chatter turned awkward and subdued. Sophia barely touched her food, her mind clearly racing. I remained quiet, eating slowly, keeping a close eye on her every move. The game had shifted, and she knew it, though she had no idea how or why. As I cleared the table, I felt her eyes on me, burning with suspicion and anger. But I didn't look back, not yet. Tomorrow, everything would come crashing down, and I wanted her to feel every second of it. The next morning, the air in the house was thick with tension. Sophia avoided me, moving quickly around the kitchen, sharp and anxious. The kids were still asleep, their laughter and chatter mercifully absent. This conversation wasn't for their ears. I waited until she was sitting at the dining table, coffee cup in hand, her phone glowing in the dim light. She looked up as I walked in, her expression cautious. "So, are you going to tell me what this is about? Or are you just going to keep sulking?" she snapped, her voice defensive and sharp, her arms crossing as if to shield herself. I didn't respond immediately. Instead, I pulled out my phone, my movements deliberate and slow, scrolling to the video that had gutted me. I placed the phone on the table between us and hit play. The scene unfolded on the screen, grainy but unmistakable. Sophia and Owen, curled up on the couch in my living room, too close, too comfortable. Her laughter, light and easy, filled the silence between us. The kind of laugh I hadn't heard from her in years. She reached for the phone, her hand trembling, but I snatched it away before she could touch it, letting the video loop just loud enough to drive the point home. Her smirk vanished in an instant, replaced by wide eyes and a face drained of all color. She froze, staring at me like a cornered animal. "Ethan," she stammered, her voice unsteady, but I cut her off before she could start spinning her excuses. From my pocket, I pulled out another piece of evidence and tossed it onto the table. The DNA results. The papers slid across the surface, coming to a stop directly in front of her. "Explain," I said, my voice low, steady, and cold as ice. Her hand hovered over the papers, shaking slightly, but she didn't pick them up. She didn't even glance at them. Instead, her expression twisted into anger, a sneer that tried and failed to mask her fear. "You've been spying on me?" she hissed, her voice rising. "What the hell is wrong with you? Are you some kind of psychopath, Ethan? Sneaking around, watching me like I'm some criminal?" I expected the deflection, the attempt to turn the blame onto me. I didn't take the bait. Instead, I leaned forward, my gaze locked on hers, unrelenting. "How long, Sophia?" I asked, my voice cutting through her tirade like a blade. "How long have you been planning this little performance?" The accusation seemed to throw her off balance. She blinked, her eyes darting briefly to the papers before returning to me. "Performance?" she spat back, trying to sound indignant, but failing to hide the crack in her voice. "You're insane. Don't waste my time," I said, my tone sharper now, enough to make her flinch. I nodded toward the phone and the papers. "The video, the DNA test. Owen is their father, isn't he?" Her lips parted, but no words came out. For a fleeting moment, I thought she might deny it, might weave another lie to buy herself time. But then her face changed. The mask of innocence she'd been wearing for so long shattered, replaced by something colder, harder. "Fine," she snapped, her voice sharp and defensive. "Yes, Owen is their father. Happy now?" The bravado in her tone didn't hide the flicker of fear in her eyes, the realization that the charade was over. I leaned back in my chair, gripping the edges to steady myself. The confirmation hit like a punch to the gut, but I refused to let her see how deeply it wounded me. Not now. Not after everything. Her arms crossed tightly, a barrier between us, but she didn't say anything else. She didn't need to. The damage was done. I leaned back, gripping the edge of the chair to steady myself. The confirmation hit like a bullet, but I refused to let her see how deep it cut. "How long?" I repeated, my voice now colder. She shrugged, her defiant expression unwavering. "Does it matter?" she shot back. "You were never around anyway. Deployments, missions. You left me here alone. What did you expect me to do? Sit around and wait for you to come home and play the hero?" Her venomous words bounced off me. I'd already seen the truth in the videos, in the faces of my children, who weren't really mine. Her excuses meant nothing to me now. "You let the kids, your kids, call him daddy," I said, my voice a low growl tinged with fury. "You invited him into my home, into my life. And you think this is about me being away?" Sophia leaned forward, eyes blazing. "Yes, Ethan, because you weren't here. You think it's so easy holding everything together while you're out playing soldier? Owen was here. He helped me. He cared." I cut her off, slamming my hand on the table. "He cared so much he hid behind your lies, Sophia. He cared so much he let me believe they were mine." She opened her mouth, but no words came out. For the first time, she had nothing to say, nothing to twist or deflect. She just glared at me, her jaw tight. I stood, picking up the DNA results and the phone. "This isn't over," I said, my voice steady. "You'll hear from my lawyer. And when this house is empty, when your lies come crashing down, I hope you remember one thing. Sophia, you did this. Not me." She didn't respond. Her silence was louder than anything she could have said. As I left the room, walking away from the wreckage of her own making, I felt the first flicker of control return. This wasn't just about ending her lies anymore. It was about reclaiming everything she thought she could take from me. The moon hung low in the sky as I parked down the street from Owen's house. The engine of my truck hummed softly before I turned it off. The neighborhood was eerily quiet, the kind of silence that amplifies every creak and rustle. The cold weight of the pistol in my lap grounded me. This wasn't some rash outburst. This was calculated, controlled. Owen's house was everything I expected, pristine, perfect. A picture of suburban comfort. The man who had shattered my life lived in a lie as clean and polished as his lawn. I slid out of the truck, pulling my jacket tighter as I moved toward the side of his house, sticking to the shadows. My heart pounded, but my mind was sharp. There was no room for hesitation. The back door wasn't as secure as it should have been. A quick twist of the crowbar, and I was inside, the lock giving way with a faint pop. I slipped through the doorway into a dark kitchen, my steps light, deliberate. The air smelled of leather and cologne, as if Owen wanted to announce his arrogance in every detail of his life. I made my way through the house, scanning for movement. Owen's snores guided me to the bedroom, a low, steady rumble that felt like mockery in the silence. He was sprawled out on the bed, one arm flung over the covers, his face slack and peaceful. He looked so at ease, so comfortable. It ignited something primal in me. I stepped closer, tightening my grip on the pistol. The barrel felt heavier as I raised it, pointing it directly at his temple. I was so close, I could see the faint stubble on his jaw, the rise and fall of his chest. My finger hovered over the trigger. My breath was steady despite the storm inside me. "Wake up," I whispered, my voice cutting through the darkness like a blade. Owen stirred, his eyes fluttering open. For a moment, he looked disoriented. His gaze shifted from the pistol to my face. Then the realization hit him, and his body tensed. His breath caught in his throat. "Ethan," he croaked, his voice shaking. "What the hell are you doing?" "Shut up," I said, pressing the barrel harder against his temple. His entire body froze. His eyes were wide with terror. "You don't get to talk right now," I continued, my voice cold. "You're going to listen, and you're going to make a choice." "A choice?" he stammered, barely above a whisper. Sweat beaded on his forehead. His eyes darted around, searching for a way out. "Yeah, a choice," I replied, my tone steely. "You're going to take full responsibility for those kids. Every single part of it. Their upbringing, their care, everything. You're going to step into the role you've avoided for years, and you're going to do it without dragging me back into your mess." His lips quivered, but he said nothing. "You think you can play games and leave me to clean up your messes? Not anymore. You'll take up the parental rights, absolve me from every obligation, and you'll make sure Sophia handles this without pulling me back in. Because if you don't..." Owen swallowed hard. His throat bobbed as his eyes locked onto mine. "Ethan, man, listen, I'm not here for excuses," I cut him off, my voice sharp and unyielding. "You made your choice, and now you're going to make another one. I'm done cleaning up after your mess. You want to play father? Fine. You take the role, for real this time. Take responsibility for the kids, for Sophia, for everything you've left in ruins. I'm out." Owen's breathing grew erratic, his chest heaving as he stared at me, wide-eyed. What are you saying?" he stammered, his voice cracking. I leaned in closer, my tone dropping to a cold, steady rhythm. "I'm saying you're going to sign over full parental rights to the kids. You'll take them on as your own. I'm done being their father in name while you're off in the shadows. If you don't agree, I'll make sure your life becomes a living hell. You think this is bad?" I motioned subtly toward the pistol at my side. "This is nothing compared to what's coming if you don't step up." Owen's face paled, his hands shaking as they gripped the edge of the bed. "Okay," he whispered, his voice trembling. Then louder, more desperate. "Okay, I'll do it. I'll sign whatever you want. I'll take care of them. Just don't do anything rash, man. I swear, I'll do it." I straightened, watching him crumble before me. A weak, hollow man who had no choice but to submit. "Good," I said coldly, "because if I ever hear about you shirking your duties, if you come near me or try to twist this around, I'll make you regret it." I tucked the gun away and stepped back, watching as Owen sagged against the bed, his body trembling with fear. For the first time, I saw him for what he truly was, a coward, spineless and broken. Without another word, I turned and left the room, the weight of the moment lingering heavily as I walked out into the cool night air. The courtroom buzzed quietly as the judge entered, the sharp rap of the gavel bringing order. I sat at my table, my lawyer beside me, a stack of documents neatly arranged in front of us. Across the room, Sophia sat stiffly, her eyes darting toward me occasionally, though she tried to maintain an air of defiance. The proceedings began, but my focus remained on the papers Owen had signed just days earlier. Under the pressure of my confrontation and the legal weight my lawyer had leveraged, he'd caved. Not only had he admitted to being the biological father of both children, but he had also signed an agreement taking on full parental rights and releasing me from any legal obligation to them. He had even renounced any claim to the house, desperate to avoid further fallout. Sophia didn't know the full extent of this yet. She was aware her carefully constructed web was unraveling but hadn't realized how completely. As her lawyer whispered something to her, I caught the flicker of unease in her eyes. She glanced toward me, and for a brief moment, I met her gaze, unflinching. My client, Ethan Bennett, my lawyer began with calm authority, has provided ample evidence showing the respondent's pattern of behavior: infidelity, manipulation, and reckless endangerment of the children's emotional well-being. Furthermore, we present signed documents from Mr. Owen Grant acknowledging his paternity and absolving Mr. Bennett of any financial or parental obligations concerning the children. A murmur rippled through the courtroom as the papers were passed around. Sophia's head snapped toward her lawyer, her face draining of color. She leaned in and whispered frantically, but her lawyer's stiff response made it clear there was no way out. The judge skimmed the documents, nodding slowly. "These appear to be in order," the judge said, her voice firm and impartial. "Do you have anything to counter this, Miss Bennett?" Sophia shot to her feet, her voice high-pitched and panicked. "Your Honor, this is a setup. He's been spying on me, digging into my personal life like some obsessed lunatic. He's trying to ruin me because I made mistakes." My lawyer responded smoothly, "Your Honor, the respondent's mistakes include hosting multiple men in her home while her husband was deployed, deceiving him into believing he was the father of 2 children, and using the family home for activities detrimental to the children's well-being. These are not mere mistakes. They are deliberate acts of betrayal and neglect." Sophia's face twisted with fury. "You don't know what it was like. He was never home. I had to do everything alone." I remained silent, watching as she unraveled. The courtroom wasn't the place for me to speak. The evidence, the videos, the DNA results, and Owen's signed confession spoke louder than any words I could have mustered. The judge raised a hand, silencing the growing tension in the room. "Miss Bennett," the judge said, her voice firm, "you cheated on a man who was deployed to serve our country, who was risking his life every single day, just to ensure that we sleep peacefully. You not only cheated on him, you took away his chance to father his own kids. Over and above that, you taught your kids to call your affair partner Daddy. Miss Bennett, that is something this court will not tolerate. Now, as per the law, this court is not here to air your personal grievances with your husband. We are here to determine the best interests of the children and to resolve the property dispute." Sophia slumped back in her chair, her knuckles white as she gripped the edge of the table. The defiance in her posture was beginning to crack, replaced by an air of desperation. The judge continued, her tone unyielding, "In light of the evidence, this court awards Mr. Bennett full ownership of the marital home. Furthermore, given Mr. Grant's acceptance of his parental responsibilities and the documented behavior of both parties, primary custody of the children will be granted to Mr. Grant and Mrs. Bennett jointly, under the condition that the children reside with their biological father. Since you already will be supported by Mr. Grant, we do not see any need for spousal support or child support from Mr. Bennett." The words hit like a thunderclap. Sophia's jaw dropped, her carefully constructed facade crumbling completely. "No, this isn't fair," she shouted, rising to her feet again. "He's manipulating everyone. He's just trying to get rid of us." "Miss Bennett," the judge interjected sharply, her voice leaving no room for argument. "This decision reflects the best interests of the children, as they will be with the man that he have come to call Daddy. If I look at your actions, it would have been in the interest of the kids to be brought up by Mr. Bennett alone, as he would have imparted some good values in the kids. Besides, Mr. Grant has already demonstrated his willingness to take full responsibility, and the court has determined that this arrangement provides the most stability for the children. You will move with them and ensure their transition is as seamless as possible. Now, if you cannot conduct yourself with decorum, I will hold you in contempt of court." Sophia fell silent, trembling with rage but powerless to do anything. Across the aisle, I exhaled slowly, feeling the tension that had been building for months start to lift. The gavel came down, finalizing the ruling. The courtroom began to empty slowly, but Sophia remained frozen in her seat, staring down at the table in front of her. I didn't spare her a second glance as I walked out. My lawyer gave me a pat on the shoulder as I stepped into the fresh air outside. The weight of the battle was finally over. Sophia had no choice but to leave with the children and Owen, facing the reality of her choices. The house, and my peace, was mine again. For the first time in months, I allowed myself to feel something I hadn't in a long time: triumph. This wasn't just a victory for me, it was justice, and that was worth everything. The courtroom was nearly empty now, but Sophia remained in her seat, gripping the edge of the table as though it was the only thing keeping her upright. Her lawyer leaned in to whisper something, but she swatted him away dismissively, her eyes locking onto me with a burning intensity. It would have been unsettling if I hadn't already seen her unravel. As I stood to leave, she exploded. "You think this makes you a winner, Ethan?" she shrieked, her voice echoing through the walls. Heads turned, and the few people still in the room froze, watching the scene unfold. "You think you've won? You're nothing without me. You're just a self-righteous coward who couldn't handle the truth." I didn't stop walking. Her words were like arrows shot from a broken bow, wild, erratic, and powerless. I kept my head high, my steps steady, making my way to the exit. The bailiff moved closer, his hand hovering near her shoulder as her tirade continued. "You abandoned your kids, took away my house. You took everything from me," she screamed, slamming her fists onto the table. "I gave you everything, and this is how you repay me? By spying on me? By destroying my life? You're pathetic, Ethan." I reached the courtroom door and paused. Slowly, I turned back to look at her. My face was calm, almost pitying. "I abandoned your and Owen's kids. They were never mine. You made sure that they call him Daddy. I just made sure that they still continue to call him Daddy, not me. You destroyed your own life, Sophia," I said, my voice steady but cutting. "All I did was make sure the consequences caught up with you." The room went silent. For a moment, she looked like she wanted to say something, but no words came. Her fury dissolved into something else entirely, recognition, perhaps, of her own unraveling. I didn't wait to see what came next. Turning back toward the door, I stepped out into the hallway, leaving her to sit alone with the pieces of her shattered control. Her face twisted in fury, but I didn't wait to hear whatever venomous words she had left. I pushed open the heavy wooden doors, the fresh air of the courthouse hallway washing over me like a cleansing wave. Behind me, I could still hear her shouting. Her voice cracked with anger and despair, fading into the background as I stepped outside. The sunlight hit me, warm and bright, a stark contrast to the storm I had just left behind. I stood there for a moment, taking a deep breath, letting the weight of my victory sink in. Sophia had lost it all, her deceptions, her manipulations, and the fragile illusion of control she had clung to so desperately. For the first time in years, I felt truly free. This wasn't just a legal win. It was liberation from her grasp, the final severing of the chains that had bound me to her betrayal. She could rage, shout, and blame me all she wanted, but the truth stood firm. Her downfall was her own doing. I walked away from the courthouse, my head held high and a newfound lightness in my step. Sophia's voice, once an oppressive force in my life, was now nothing more than a faint echo, growing weaker with every step I took. She was finished, and so was I. This time, for good. Standing on the porch of my reclaimed home as the sun set behind me, a sense of peace settled over me. The chaos, the lies, the endless battle. It was all behind me now. The house was quiet, serene, and for the first time in a long while, so was I. This journey had taught me lessons I never wished to learn. About betrayal, manipulation, and the strength it takes to endure. Sophia had tried to take everything from me. My family, my dignity, and my future. But she underestimated the depth of my resolve. I was determined to fight for the truth, no matter the cost. The road was anything but easy. There were moments when the weight of it all felt insurmountable, when giving up seemed like the most tempting option. But I didn't falter. I couldn't. In the end, it was the truth that set me free, not just from her, but from the illusions I had clung to for far too long. If there's one thing I've learned above all else, it's this. You cannot deceive someone who refuses to look away. Lies crumble in the face of determination. Manipulations unravel under the weight of undeniable evidence. And justice is what remains when you refuse to give in. This is my life now, a life rebuilt on a foundation of truth and resilience. Sophia's downfall wasn't just her end. It marked a new beginning for me. No matter how deep the betrayal or how heavy the lies, the truth matters. It's worth fighting for, worth defending, and in the end, it's the only thing that truly endures. Now, I know with unwavering certainty, the truth is all that matters. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.